Greetings, Dr. Jeffrey Scott here. This is my part two of my weekend market update for October 13th, 2024. It's late night Sunday here in Tokyo, but early morning before most of you probably are even up on the East Coast of the U.S. Earlier, I did my market assessment. I titled it All-Time Highs for Spider and the Dow Jones, and I questioned whether we run up into the election. Do we run up further, or are we just in a bull trap and not going to sustain what we saw this past week? As always, it's for education purposes only. Anything I recommend are in the spirit of education, not investment advice. I'm a doctor, not a broker. I don't work for any software vendors. No one pays me to say good things or bad things about their tools. I've paid for everything that I demonstrate and use, and trading involves risk. You'll are solely responsible for any investment decisions you make. All right. In the first section, I talked about how this was a great week because the Q actually flipped their bongo to blue. And as what you can see in this tool, the green represents buy. We've been in a buy since November on the Spider. We've been in a buy for the last month on the Russell as it's working its way up. You could see we had a run up. And the diamonds, we've been in a buy for a while as well. So the last to join the long party has been the Qs. If we look at the spiders for the week, this is a 5-minute chart. So Monday we sold off, rallied a little bit at the end. Tuesday we traded higher. Wednesday we traded higher. Monday we sold off during the session. Tuesday we traded higher. Wednesday we started higher early and then went sideways. Thursday we stayed sideways. And Friday, with strong bank earnings and other news, the market traded higher. For the week, a pretty good week, seeing that we ended the prior week at right about this level. And we closed, as you could see, not a big difference, at least 1% up. If we look at the weekly move, the daily move on the spiders, you can see we broke out of this sideways move. We've got this MACD divergence. It hasn't fired yet, but that's something to watch out for. But we're at all-time highs on the close, and the close was at 579.58, and the high was 580.33, so we're just off of all-time highs, but certainly hit an all-time closing high. And if we look at the weekly spiders, you could see closing up here, up 1.15%, and on Friday it was up 0.6%. So a good week for the spiders. If we look at the Qs, and this is a daily chart, you could see we had this little flag. We've now broken out. We are well off of all-time highs, but continuing to move up 0.16 on Friday. And for the week, you could see here, we were up 1.24%. The Dow, which has been a leader with the spiders, all-time high, all-time closing high, with a fresh breakout here up on Friday, almost 1%. And if we change this into a weekly chart, you can see on the weekly chart, this beautiful chart, up 1.26 on the week. Let's change this back so I don't forget to do that. Now, the laggard has been the Russell, but over the last couple of weeks, the Russell has pulled back after a nice run and looks like it's breaking out of that area. You can see on Friday a big move on the Russell, up 2%. And on the week, big bottoming tail, but closed at the high of the week, up almost 1% on the week. So a strong week for the major indices throughout. Let me close this. Let's look at a weekly on the VIX. Let's just blow this up. And the VIX, despite the markets being up, the VIX was up 6.5%. I'm not sure what to make of that. Maybe a little bit concerning. And the dollar, which has been the market's friend after this strong run-up, sideways move, is now moving back into this area. And it'll be interesting to see if the dollar continues to strengthen, that could work against the U.S. markets. Looking at commodities, the dollar's up. You might expect gold. But nope, gold had a nice gap up, was up 1%. Silver also up on the session, 1.5%. Even oil has retraced some of its recent losses And although it's down 0.36, let's look at a weekly on the USO. You can see on the weekly, oil was up on the week 1.5%. Natural gas, and it's so predictable, fails the 200 every time, and it's failed the 200-day again. And like the dollar, the 10-year is working its way off the lows. It was up this week, up 0.91 on Friday. And again, let's look at a weekly chart of the U.S. oil. It's a monthly, excuse me. But you can see a weekly chart, a big move up of 3.28% on the 10-year, not oil, 10-year. So raising rates, raising dollar, higher oil, all these things could work against the rally that we're seeing. But it's almost as if it's a magical rally with people relying on additional Fed cuts. When we look at the S&P 500 sectors hourly chart versus the spider, what's leading, what's most interesting is here industrials. Notice the weakness in staples, real estate, utilities, and healthcare. Those are all defensive sectors, and that kind of goes along with the market that's in a pretty remarkable bull run and likely to go higher. Technology trending up, although discretionary, which wasn't a nice uptrend, pulled back some. Materials came back. And it's really looking at this, it's all about industrials. Financials, especially on Friday with some big earnings, looked good. If we go into the stock scanners and we go into the heat map of the S&P 500, you can see a mixed day. Meta, little bit of a flag, positive day on Friday, up 1%. Has certainly been among the FANG stocks, one of the leader. NVIDIA, interesting, shows red here, down a bit. A green candle closed up for the session. What happened here with NVIDIA is must have, after hours gave up some, but on the session, it was, what is it, down 0.1% on the session. But a nice green candle, broke out of this trend line resistance and gave us a nice opportunity, I think, to buy on a stock that's likely to go higher. It's had a nice little run since then. Tesla, which had been doing well, has really broken down and lost the 50, was down over 8%. I guess the market didn't like the robots. Apple, a lot of currents about whether or not they're making their numbers on the iPhone 16. Have a big announcement coming up on their new iMacs and MacBooks. Just like NVIDIA, it's got a trend line. I like to see it take out before I get too excited. Microsoft, among the big guys, struggling at the 200. AMD, which really lived around its long-term trend line, is broken up, pulled back to the 200. Might be an interesting place to look at here, up 2.26%. And then Google, and we'll look at Amazon. Google struggling here in this area with the 200 as support and the 17 as resistance. And then lastly, Amazon, a nice move above the 17, looks pretty good too. Big weeks, the next 2 weeks, all these will have earnings. I believe Netflix is the first one to have earnings this week. If we look at the wealth scanner, kind of deteriorated with only a couple things above 800. And as you'll see, it led by the triple Qs. Now, if a 3X QQQ is the leading part of the market, that's good to be owning NASDAQ. Adaptive U.S. Risk ETF, technology, FANGs, semiconductors. So let's look at a couple of things. Let's go into my CAT scanner. Let's start with technology. Technology was one of the leading groups. And, a lot of the big semiconductors have had big moves. But looking here, PRFT, I think that's a takeout candidate, so we'll forget about that. Affirm, one of these buy now, pay later companies, really had a nice breakout here on earnings. You could see the earnings showed supposed to lose 50 cents, only lost 14. That's a big positive surprise. Run up, sideways, looks like it's ready to go again. Good volume, breakout momentum, strong relative strength in OBV. IMAX Theaters, uptrend, pullback, broke out above the 50 on good volume, And you can see down here, not extended, relative strength OBV look good. SSNC Technologies, pull back to the 50 and breaking out. I like that. ACIW, ACI Worldwide, what a monster stock. Little bit of a pivot in here, and now running again. Marvell Technology, one of the semiconductor stocks, hasn't really done much, trying to break out here off the 17. Maxilinear, kind of a beat up stock. And Zoom Info, we'll stop at the 2. Like Maxilinear, way off of its high. So of this group, I think Affirm looks really good. I think SNC looks good. Let's see if I have a semiconductor one. Yeah, there's Marvell and Maxell, but let's switch it to rockets and see. Just Marvell, it's looking momentum up. Wolf is one that is another beaten up one, and I don't usually go after stocks that have really been destroyed. But this one actually looks kind of interesting here. Massive volume, breakout momentum, certainly not extended. Relative strength in OBV turning up. It's a low-cost semiconductor stock, breaking above the 50. AMKR, not so much. There's Marvell, Maxilinear. And another one that people are talking about is Intel. I can tell you I'm actually doing this on a Core Ultra 2 i7 powered Asus 14-inch computer. And I am out of town, and I brought this as my main computer. It's lightweight, and I'm very impressed with the new Intel Core Ultra 2 processors. Interesting to see what they do. All right, how about industrials? Is there anything that's going to look good in industrials? I'm a top-down guy. I called the market was working. The strength was in technicals and industrials. That's where I look first. Fastenal, big move up on Friday on earnings. Small beat, 52 versus 51 cents. Gap, volume, breakout, momentum coming out of a squeeze. Not too extended. Relative strength OBV. This one looks like it could go higher. I don't usually buy after something does this. What I often see is, it didn't take hold on. What I often see is it to do a little bit of this, form a flag, and then break out. And that's typically when I want to get after it. Right now, it's a little bit too extended. We'll see what it does going forward. Dover Corp, don't know much about this one. Old name, gradual uptrend, little pullback here. Let's see what's got here. Volume, breakout momentum from a squeeze. Not quite relative strength. Allegion, beautiful uptrend, sideways move. Is it ready to run again? Let's see what we got down here. Coming out of a squeeze. Breakout in momentum, relative strength OBV turning up. Bloom Energy, no. GE, beautiful move, a little bit of a pullback. Just wonder if it's not getting out ahead of itself. Breakout momentum, relative strength in OBV. Again, this is what I do. I start at the top, and I work my way down the list to see what gives me the pullbacks and uptrends that are attractive and fit my usual buying pattern. All right, so I've looked at industrials, I've looked at semis, I've looked at technology. Lastly, let's pull up the big list, my combo list. And I put these together from hundreds of stocks, tens of stock lists, and then I combine them into one list so I could scan. Uber and Lyft both look interesting. Here's Lyft. And you could see less interesting because it's got to get above the 200. And here's Uber. Big gap up on Friday on pretty massive volume. Relative strength in OBV and not too extended. There's a Rob Hoffman launch indicator. Probably worth doing a little bit of research and see what happened. But when both of them are moving, it's probably a good thing. We've already talked about Affirm. The big banks started having earnings on Friday. Bank of America, I don't believe its earnings are out yet, but look at this nice move here. See, this was back when? 7/16. Earnings are probably, maybe they're out or coming this week. But you can see Bank of America pullback, sideways move, and a great breakout on Friday on massive volume, breakout momentum out of a squeeze, not extended, relative strength at OBV look great. That's one that I'll be watching closely. BlackRock, they invest in most of these stocks. What a great run. Is it extended? Let's see what the high-low jump is at 100%. Do I think BlackRock goes higher from here? It probably does, but it's extended. And then let's see here. Bank One, another one. Capital One, another one of the financial stocks. Less exciting looking than Bank of America, but not bad. Here's JP Morgan. Like Bank of America, pull back at a nice breakout on Friday. Their earnings are out. 9% beat. And then the other things that are starting to move besides the big banks are the regional banks. This is one that I like. Western Alliance, uptrend, pullback, and a breakout on Friday. Breakout, momentum on volume from a squeeze, not extended. Relative strength looks good. OBV is catching up. So that's how I like to look at the markets. That's a quick rundown of some of the top, from a top-down perspective with a little bit of a bottoms-up twist. Now, I've developed a new product that I've been playing with, and I call it Market MRI Pro, and I just want to show you a couple things on it that I'm really excited about. I have a watch list called JAS, which is just, I think we put $1 and 100,000 shares, and you'll see it's going to have about 3,000 stocks, 3,005 last week, 3302. And let me just refresh the scanner, making sure everything is updated. And so this is a real-time tool, but let me show you what we built in for top-down. So top-down is going to look at the various sectors. You can see the 11 S&P sectors. We've put each of those 3,300 stocks into a sector. I have different ways of ranking them by percentage move. The leaders were financials, industrials, which we've just looked at, and healthcare and technology. And then I have three different, if I call it Jeffrey Force, which is a derivation of the Alexander Elder's force, and looking at force as a momentum driver. And let's turn this thing off. Perfect. And you could see the most momentum was in financials, industrials, and technology, the things we just looked at. You could pick any of these. Here's financial services. Here's a list of all the industry groups. And again, you can look at them by percentage move, with the leader being regional banks, capital markets, and diversified, things that we already looked at. You could look at all of them down here, and I like to rank them by JF, Jeffrey Force. And there you have BlackRock, big runner here. FNCA, which is expensive bank stock. EVR is Evercore. And you see that big uptrend, pullback, and breakout pattern. I could also look by my dots. Turn this off. And you can see the ones that have 4 dots. Bank One. Here's a customer Bancorp. Yeah, kind of a beat-up stock. FFIC, Flushing Financial, trending higher, pullback, and a breakout on Friday. ICE, Intercontinental Exchange, big run-up, sideways move, and breakout. So there are other tools, but the way I trade is the same. I look at the markets, which we started with a timing model that said green on all the majors. If I look at the daily timing model, you're going to see the same thing. There's a buy on each of them. That's exciting. If you look at the market brief and want to see which sectors were leading on the week or on the day on Friday, you could see financials, industrials, even real estate moved its way up. Over 5 days, a little longer look. Technology, industrials, financials. Technology, industrials, and financials. And then I could go back into my top-down layout and I could look at what's leading in the various sectors here. So just wanted to share with you the tool that I'm working on. More to follow on this. We use wealth charts to do our top-down and bottoms-up. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I hope you watch the Wealth 365 event, which will be starting in just 24 hours. Take care. And sorry for the quality of the volume, but this is all I got.